right, so we've got John, is it Kevill?
It's definitely, it's the third of those.
It's the Kevill?
Yes.
Kevill. John Kevill.
That is how
of Warbringer.
it rhymes with evil to pronounce it correctly.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to Hard Rock Haven.
No problem, Hard Rock Haven.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's just jump right into it. Worlds Torn Asunder. Can you talk a little bit about writing an album?
It was a pretty kick-ass process writing that album. We had all this time. We had band was in a good place. We were all getting along, and we were kind of on the same page. We were like, we're gonna do Warbringer as it is known, but basically the idea was do what we do, though better than we have done it before. That was the general concept, and I personally feel that we executed it. Having been here since day one, I think is the best record we have done, and I'm really proud of it. And I think the performances of everyone in the studio, which by the way are not like super retouched or anything, that's actually more or less you're hearing exactly what we laid down on this record, which I'm really proud of. Yeah, I think it's the finest performance we've put down in the studio, and I'm happy with the songs.
Absolutely, turned out great. Now, can you talk a little bit about the themes? Because it's kind of like a bad view of the future. Humanity's just tearing each other apart.
You know, I'm actually kind of a happy-go-lucky guy, and I pour a lot of my negative thoughts into this band because the music that we make is really aggressive, and so I have to come up with really like angry, aggressive themes to fit it. And so that's the main idea, is to find themes that fit the individual songs. So some of the themes on here, Living Weapon is our only war theme song, because everyone always used to say, oh, they write all their songs about war because their band's called Warbringer, so obviously all their songs must be about war, right? That's logical. However, that's the one that's about it, and it's about a specific aspect of it that's a man who volunteers or is conscripted to be a soldier has to follow orders, and therefore they kind of sacrifice their own will and become a tool or a living weapon, so to speak. You know, you can't, and this was inspired by specifically the incident that I heard about. This was History Channel, thank you very much, History Channel. There was some Russian prison guards when, sometime around the time Joseph Stalin took power during the Great Purge of the Red Army in the 30s, that they had to execute several hundred people per day. They were just round-the-clock execution. It was talking about how these guys, most of the guards there was an extremely high suicide rate amongst them because of what they had to do to their fellow man. And so that's where the concept of that song came from, and that's one little tidbit about one song for you.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. You've worked with some great producers, Gary Holt, obviously. How did Mr. Steve Evets get involved?
Steve Evets did a great job, and pretty much we were just looking for a producer. Gary was on tour with Slayer, so he was an option to do this record. We're still great friends with the guy. And I would say, basically, Steve had done a wide variety of records, but we just spoke to him. We hit him up because he was in the area. We were looking for producers in our area who we were able to possibly use. And so we were talking to him, and he seemed to share a lot of the same ideas. John Locks and Andy Locks went down and met with him, and they said they had a really good vibe from it. I was actually kind of a little detached from the selection process, but I really enjoyed working with Steve, because his idea about things, he was really a stickler for perfect correctness in the studio, and I really liked that about him, that he really brought or forced the best performances out of us that we were possibly able to do. And I had a ton of fun working with him too, because our sense of humor intersected pretty well. And you know, we'd be joking around, but at the same time I would be doing like certain parts. I did like 20 or 30 takes to get the actual one on there, because if something sucked, he was not afraid to tell me like, hey, that could be better, or hey, that sucked even. And that's what I like. I really liked to have somebody who was going to push me to do my best, and someone who was interested to learn like what my best was and get that out of me. And I think he really did that for everyone in the band, and that's why I felt like we had as high a quality of recording as we did. Steve Evans had a huge part to play in what made that record work.
We can't argue with the results.
Yeah,
It turned out fantastic.
Well, unless you think the results suck, in which case,
Then you're good.
in which case I'm actually about to deliver a karate kick to your mom. Yeah, straight to the baby maker. It's deadly.
I believe it. Yeah.
It's
Thrash.
like you've seen Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat, how he just flies across.
Yes.
I can't do that yet, but if I saw your mother, I would. I'd suddenly gain the ability. Next question, yes.
Next question. Thrash music. It kind of it seems to have a resurgence nowadays. You know, you've got the big four. And plenty of thrash bands out there. At least it seems like there's a rebirth of the genre. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's still alive and well?
Because it's badass.
Can you expand on that at all? Or just that's it, bottom line?
Does that really
Badass.
need expanding upon? Thrash metal is more if you're going to go for like a mathematical sum of most badass form of music come up with by humankind so far, I would argue that it is and has been and likely will be thrash metal. Thrash metal is pure speed, aggression, and headbanging, violence and death, and just everything that's badass and just like kick-ass about metal. All of that rolled into a giant, thing that is thrash metal. And but the thing about thrash that drew me to it, as opposed to like say death or black metal, which are more extreme in certain aspects, I would say thrash is actually the heaviest of those genres when you do it at the heavier end of it. Stuff like Demolition Hammer or something. The heaviest that thrash metal got during its evolution, I'd say, because it still has that song element. Because you can still understand the vocals and therefore understand exactly what manner of horrors are being wrought upon you, and not just like, well, this is a brutal vocal sound. No, it is a brutal vocal sound with specific descriptions of exactly how you are dying horribly. And that is one cool thing about thrash metal I really liked. I love the machine gun bark style of vocals, and that's something that I consider myself a practitioner of. And our band, pretty much, we try to sound more or less like machine guns shooting you repeatedly. Like if someone just put their foot on your face and just started like blasting away at you, that's what we try to sound like, more or less. And that is fucking thrash metal as it can get in my book.
Absolutely. Well said. Who inspired you? You talked about a few of those bands.
Creator, Exodus, Slayer, Demolition Hammer, I almost said Texodus, as in a cross between Testimus and Exodus and Textbook, which is not a real band. But if that was a band, it would probably have inspired me. And just basically badass heavy metal. I'm actually, more so than anything, I'm a fan of just traditional heavy metal, like Priest and Maiden and everything related that is glorious and good. But for the heavy stuff, I love my brutal thrash metal, Pleasure to Kill, Coma of Souls, Epidemic of Violence, Spectrum of Death, all Soldiers of Misfortune, all those just like real fast, unrelenting, brutal stuff. And a lot of that music too has like, especially when it reaches like the beginning of the 90s, I think a lot of thrash metal starts to have like some interesting progressive tendencies to it, whilst still being really aggressive, that I'm drawn to. And I think our band has elements of that as well, because that specific fact is something that has been inspirational to us as well.
But Warbringer's gone through some changes in lineup recently. How are things going with Andrew? I mean, obviously you just did a great
He's still in great. Actually, I've been talking to this kid for years. He's a little younger than the rest of us, who are, by some standards, fairly young. And the reason I think we hired this guy is because I've always known he lives out in Big Bear, which is a few hours away from anything else in California. And he's always, since we've started our band, since before we signed, he was just like a metal dude that we knew that I'd talk to about metal pretty much. And, and stuff we liked, stuff we didn't like, analyzing music, he was really into it in that way, and I was as well. And so I've been speaking to him for years, and the band has known him for years, and he was a guitar player, and we knew he was a killer player, which he really is. But the reason we got this guy is specifically because he had not been in a band before. He hadn't had a chance to get jaded, really. The guy he has skill and he has heart, and he loved what we did, because I knew this because I had spoken to him for a long time, considered one of the better thrash bands out there nowadays. He loves the thrash metal. And so we were like, let's get this guy on board. This guy is a killer player. He deserves a chance to get out there and kick some ass. And I think he would fit well with our band. He knows what we're about. He's known us since we started, actually, because he's been in the metal for a while himself. And so it's turned out to be a really good choice. He was only in the band for about 2 weeks before this tour. And the first show of this tour was his first live show. So now he's on 33, I believe, tonight, and he's been kicking ass, you know. The kid shreds, dude. Kid, fuck that. The guy shreds. He's 21 now. He can drink a beer with the rest of you. Yeah, the guy is a really good guitar player, and I feel like right now we are sounding as tight or tighter than we ever have. And it's really cool because that was the shame about Adam, as I felt in the last few months he was in the band. He was kind of losing heart and stopped with the rest of us trying to like really improve, you know, bring it to the absolute top upper level. He had just gotten tired, you know. And but Andy's some fresh blood in the band. It's actually I think that has helped revitalize us a bit in a way in our live performance and everything. So I've altogether been really happy with this transition. I'll always miss Adam. I love that guy to death, but Andy's killing it about as hard as we could ask for.
Well, good for you guys for giving him a chance. That's great.
Yeah, he's doing a great job, and the guy, he's got all that, you know. He's got probably more of a shred player than either Adam or John typically are for their preferences of what style of guitar they play, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, here's the last question for you.
Okay.
What would you like to say to Warbringer fans out there, all over the world? This
Warbringer
is
fans
on the internet.
You guys kick ass. I love you guys. Thanks for supporting our music. We will we'll try to never ever let you down and kick as much ass as possible for your sake. And we hope that whenever you see us, you enjoy the show. That's all I have to say there.
Mr. John Kevill, appreciate that. Thank you again.
All right,
Had a great
thank you
show.
very much, dude.